Welcome to the CareGiver reality show with your hosts, David Levy and Paul Vadiato, who bring you more than a combined 25 years of practical experience, helping thousands of family caregivers, helping them find solutions to the challenges and frustrations presented by this important responsibility. So if you are in the position of caring for a spouse or a parent, a loved one who is no longer able to care for themselves, or if you know someone who is, this hour will be worth the listening. Now, let's tune in to today's edition of CareGiver Reality with your hosts, David Levy and Paul Vadiato.
Good evening, South Florida, America, and the world. It's 5 o'clock here on the East Coast, and so once again, it's the CareGiver Reality Hour, and I'm here with my co-host, Paul Vadiato, Marcia Teal, who's our guest today, and you'll be hearing more from her in just a few minutes. And you're listening to us on caregiverreality.com, AMP2, number 2.tv, WWNN1470.com, or 1470 AM on your radio, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, you name it. We're out there. And each week we just got our numbers, which I'm not allowed to tell anybody, but every week we're growing this audience very dramatically.
We're here for you.
And absolutely, we're here from you. And it would appear that what we have to say has a little bit of credibility because you're listening and we're growing, and we're very, very pleased. We've got a lot of interesting things to bring you tonight, a couple of things about Alzheimer's, a couple of things about facilities. But as we do every week when we start the show, Paul, how was your week?
Well, good afternoon, David, and good afternoon to all of our listeners. Thank you for joining us again this week. I hope all of you have gone out and exercised your constitutional right to vote, being Election Day today.
Yep.
A lot of major races going on. My week in caregiving.
Did you vote?
I did vote.
Okay.
And my caregiving was clock-driven because we had good mornings, not so good afternoons, up all nights. I tell you, these autoimmune disorders, they ought to be illegal. They are so difficult.
Right.
Debbie had really gone from a roller coaster of a week, and I really feel bad for her. And it's physical, emotional, psychological. It's just a roller coaster, and it's disheartening as a caregiver because as much as we want to do and take away the pain and make things better, I don't have that magic wand. David, you wrote the book. Do we have a wand in that book?
No, there is no wand. We're just happy wanderers.
How is Suzette doing this week?
It was one of those weeks, and you know it.
Yeah.
The autoimmune outdid the person, and she's been having a difficult time. And now her whole sleeping arrangement is really upside down. She's going to sleep at 6 a.m, and she's up all night. Fortunately, she has her Kindle, which she loves. She's a voracious reader, and so I can see, because when I check it, it's on one of the credit cards. She has more $1.98s than anybody. I said, why don't you get into substantial stuff? She says, I love murder mysteries, detective stories, all that kind of stuff.
What really messed Debbie up this week was the change of time.
Oh.
And for some reason, her body clock had been acclimated to daylight savings time, and now with the change, her whole pattern seemed to be off. Same with Suzette?
I don't know. I don't know what her sleeping pattern is. All right. All I know is that my dogs did not leap forward.
And my cat is crazy.
Right. So our pets are still on whatever clock they're on, and they manage somehow or other to come bouncing in and go, feed me, feed me. But it's been a very interesting week, and before we go any further, many of you who are caregivers may know that this is National Caregiver Month.
Yes.
And the president issued a proclamation. I'm going to do something I don't normally do because I didn't memorize it, but it was a very interesting proclamation, so I'm going to take a moment and read it to you. Each day, courageous individuals step forward to help care for family members in need. Their quiet acts of selfishness and sacrifice tell a story of love and devotion. Across our country, parents and children, siblings and spouses, friends and neighbors heroically give of themselves to support those in their lives affected by illness, injury, or disability. During National Family Caregivers Month, we salute the people who play difficult and exhausting roles, and we recommit to lifting up these Americans as they care for their loved ones while protecting their dignity and individuality. In the United States, more than 60 million caregivers provide invaluable strength and assistance to their family members. And as the number of older Americans rise, so will the number of caregivers. Many of these dedicated people work full-time and raise children on their own while also caring for the needs of their loved one. A very difficult problem. That was me. Caregivers support the independence of their family members and enable them to more fully participate in their communities, and as a nation, we have an obligation to empower them. It goes on, but the ending came. Now, therefore, I, Barack Obama, President of the United States, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim November 2014 is National Family Caregiver Month. I encourage all Americans to pay tribute to those who provide for the health and well-being of their family members and neighbors. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 31st day of October, in the year of our Lord, 2014, and of the independence of the United States, the 239th year. Barack Obama. And I think the early part of it, before he got into what his administration is doing, and I didn't think we needed to take the time with that, but certainly the recognition of the 60 to 70 million caregivers in the United States who are doing all kinds of things that they never expected to do, what starts in love and then turns into a role and a responsibility beyond anything that we might have expected. But yet millions and millions of people rise to that occasion every day, do what they have to do, try and earn a living, try and have a life, try and raise a family. And these are very courageous and people that should be admired, not because they're caregivers, but they have given of themselves in a way that, few others have. And as caregiving grows, we'll be reporting on all the little issues and the big issues. And tonight, I have one related to Alzheimer's, and we have Marcia Teal here, who is one of the reigning experts on assisted living and dementia care, who will be enlightening us, for those of you who don't understand what goes on and trying to pick a facility for somebody that has a dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's or one of the 52 others. You'll be very, very informed by the time the show is through tonight.
If I had the power to add an addendum onto that proclamation, and I think it's wonderful that caregivers are recognized. We're electing a new Congress today. That addendum should include some dollars for the education, support, and training of these caregivers who are struggling on a day-in, day-out basis. And right now, it's just not there. And help is desperately needed all across these United States. And so the recognition of these caregivers is wonderful, but recognize them with help, dollars, and resources. And I know, David, you've been talking about this for 27 years. It's about time that the curtain be lifted and these people get some help.
Well, and it's because everybody expects that when things happen, be it dementia, a stroke, a serious chronic illness, that family is just supposed to be there, do their thing, and forget the fact that there may not be any other ability to support. People think that Medicare and Medicaid jump right in. They're really a very thin safety net, and anyone who thinks that Medicare is going to get a loved one above the age of 65 through long-term care in a facility or even at home really has another thing coming. And I don't mean to be the bearer of tough news, but Medicaid is getting more difficult. It's getting more difficult to fund it. And even though the Social Security funds and others may not dry up, hopefully they will, continue to be funded. but anyone who watches and sees the amount of Social Security versus what the costs of care are really can't rely upon that.
And, David, so that our audience understands that while we're focusing today on older Americans, this problem of care and caregivers is across the entire age span. If we now know that 1 in 54 children are being born along the spectrum of autism, what of those caregivers and of those children? And then we talk about our men and women who have returned from battles with physical, emotional, mental scars that need to be healed, and families that are struggling for the very basics of life while they deal with this very difficult caregiving.
And they're also dealing with a system that is truly not caregiver or chronic illness friendly. And you see it every day. I was told, I got a phone call from one of my caregivers, her 89-year-old mother slipped and fell, broke her hip yesterday afternoon. They're discharging her in the morning. And that's after a pin surgery. She's barely recovered from anesthesia, and she's out the door. And
it's quick in, quick out, sicker.
And quicker.
And quicker.
Yeah.
But, if you go and you look at the pediatric cancer wards, you go and you look at those that are in rehab from falls and accidents. Gosh, I know here in South Florida every day there is a report of somebody getting either injured or killed on the highways. All of this is going to require caregivers, and simply put, we're running out of them.
Yes.
We need caregivers. They need to be trained. Families need to be educated, and we need to have a proactive stance as a nation. And I hope this election day we're going to find people in there who are going to take some positive action and make things easier to the people who are listening here today. I'm so appreciative of all of our listeners who are joining the conversation on our Caregiver Reality Facebook page. Count on that continuing and these issues being brought forward. But please make your voices be known to your elected officials because they are accountable to you. David?
And one other point to be made, even if you're the 1% and the guys that have the boats and cars and planes and trains, caregiving happens on your watch too. Money cannot buy off caregiving. The emotional strain when it's your wife, your child, your mother, your grandmother, we just can't bury it in dollars. And it would be very nice if we could, but we can't. And, everybody needs to be aware that as a nation we need to pitch in, and the world has hundreds of millions of caregivers that we never hear about, never see. They're laboring, silent suffering if that's the case, or because of different cultural reasons, they just assume it's their responsibility. They go ahead and do it, just like they've done it for years and years and centuries.
David, we know from the demographics of our program that we're heard or seen in over 100 countries worldwide. And every country, in every hamlet, in every state here in the United States, it's going to take a different form. The resources are going to be different. But the commonality of what we struggle with, what you wrote in your book so eloquently about the stresses of caregiving, not clinical, but things that families have to deal with on a day in and day out basis, it's applicable across everywhere we go, across every illness, every generation. And you're exactly right. And I've worked 29 years in wealth management. Money doesn't absolve the responsibility, the aches, the pains, the heartaches, the stresses of caregiving.
I'll just add one little piece on that icing. 25 years ago when I started a company called Adult Care, and we were supporting caregivers around the country. Our tagline was, because caring is so much more than money.
Amen.
And I was owned by, I was a subsidiary of a long-term care insurance company, and they understood that it was so much more than just dollars. Anyway.
So what's in the news?
What's in the news? Well, one of the things that's in the news, is very interesting. We're back a little bit to doing some mouse studies, notwithstanding the fact that Rudy Tanzi and his group announced a couple of weeks ago that they had been able to, from stem cells, grow neuron cells and then introduce the correct RNA, DNA to turn it into dementia and do it in a gel so that they're able to see so much more of what was going on and let the computers scan through all of that. Now, there's been another report that just came out on Friday, and we've talked about, and we're not going to get scientific at all, but basically, when we see specifically Alzheimer's, we see two kinds of situations. Number one, we see something called beta amyloid, and that's what causes the plaquing in our brain that shows up on the X-ray.
Like plaquing on teeth.
Like plaquing on teeth or a scab on a wound.
Right.
You can analogize it to just about anything you want. And the other thing that we saw early on is something called tau, T-A-U. And in the beginning, we thought that tau, along with the beta amyloid, was the reason for the Alzheimer's. Now they've come out, and some very, very smart people have just released a study that indicates that tau is present in the neurons that carry all the electrical connections and give us our thinking capability, etc. And that when the tau can't, it's like a garbage collector. When it can't clean out the excess protein and things like that, it starts to clog the neurons. And what happens is, as tau cannot effectively clean it out, the cell begins to die. And what happens is it leaks beta amyloid. And we used to think that was the reason that we had Alzheimer's, but yet we used to see people, and the brain studies used to show that at end of life, there were people that had a brain full of plaquing that never had dementia of the Alzheimer's type.
So in simple speak, what does that mean? So in
simple speak, it seems that tau is helping to clean out the garbage that's in our neurons, and that even as we grow older, as long as there's a little more good tau than tau that has started to degenerate because of aging, we're able to keep our cognitive capability. And one of the things they were experimenting on, and we need to be very careful, is they were using a cancer drug, and that was also able to help clear out and allow the the tau to do a much better job of continuing to clean. Now, having said that, a lot of very smart people from the Alzheimer's Association chimed in and said, this is a very interesting report. We don't know where it'll go. Other very recognized people in the field have said, remember, it's mice. Mice aren't humans. But it's a very, very interesting study and kind of explains a little more clearly why people with plaquing don't always have memory loss. And so stay tuned. We'll be hearing more about that in the future. But there are a lot of very interesting things on the cusp that don't necessarily mean we're going to find a cure. Maybe we'll be able to understand it better so that maybe we can slow it down.
So what we need is research. We need
research,
money.
and what we need is, and like we talk every week, and we will in a few minutes about medical research charities, if we don't have money for research, and the B part of that is if we don't have humans that will raise their hand and be part of some of these new studies, there's the Tomorrow study that's going on right now in Palm Beach County and around the country, which is trying to take younger people that may only have a little bit of mild cognitive impairment, senior moment, call it what you will, and start to track them over a 5-year period of time.
What does younger people mean?
It means people younger than me.
So
65.
Under or over 65?
They're looking for between 65 and 80.
Okay.
That basically have just the beginnings of what may be a little bit of age-related cognitive impairment or forgetfulness, or maybe the very, very early beginnings of mild cognitive impairment caused by Alzheimer's or some of the other causative diseases.
Just so that we're clear for our listeners, when we speak about cognitive impairment, what does that actually mean? Does that mean I forget?
Well, part of the things, it means that you potentially forget. Not only do you forget and not remember, but you may not be able to organize your day effectively. You may not only forget what you just said or names that you're trying to remember, but you may not be able to do your checkbook any longer. You may get lost in the aisles of a grocery store that you've been shopping in for 15 or 20 years, and it is a breakdown in the thinking, remembering process. That's probably the easiest way to deal with the word
So files
cognitive.
get lost, we can't find the files.
Yeah, what happens is there's a lot of books in that library, and if the librarian is sick, we can't retrieve them. And so that's essentially what the hippocampus in our brain does. It's our master librarian. And when the librarian isn't working well because of tau or plaquing or a stroke or whatever it may be, then we can't retrieve memories. And then eventually what happens is we can't even remember the short-term things. You know, we
What
start
are
with
some
the old
of
stuff.
the resources, David, that if our listeners would like to go and learn more about this, where might they be able to find out?
Well, the primary resource, you know, in terms of Alzheimer's cognitive issues is the American Alzheimer's Association. Here in South Florida, we have the Alzheimer's Community Care. Organizations like Marsh's Arden Court have a website full of useful information. They've got 60 or 56 facilities.
As does
around-
ours.
Yes, exactly. But the issues are, it will be very clinical, the information that you will receive. And so your understanding of the disease will become clearer. However, trying to interpret what you're reading and apply it to yourself could create what we used to call in medical school sophomore syndrome. Everything you read, you thought you had, you know, from malaria to, whatever it may be. So you have to be careful that you read it and also take a step back and not impute everything that you read to something that you may have, even though, we all go through forgetting things. And we all go through going through that list of ABC. What the heck was that first name? All right? That's normal, all right, to a great degree. But when you forget, not where you forget where you put your keys, but when you forget how to drive your car, then you know you've moved up the food chain.
And there's always David at caregiverreality.com, Paul at caregiverreality.com if you have a question that we might be able to address. And again, www.caregiverreality.com is a resource that is well put together, very easy to understand, and it exists for you.
And also, as part of that website, is a very, very good collection of third-party resources, such as the American Alzheimer's Association and organizations like that, the NIH. So if you want to see what clinical trials are going on, or sites like Medline Plus, spelled PLUS at the end, not a cross, .gov and .com. Medline Plus has got everything you want to know about it, as well as where all the clinical trials are. I see it is close to 5:25. You're listening to the Caregiver Reality Hour on caregiverreality.com and all those other places that I said, but I think we better go to a break because I want to leave plenty of time for you to hear what Marcia Teal has to say. So, Kenny, take it away for us.
CFC support helps fund research. You can too. Each year, thousands of men and women serving their country in the U.S. military, as well as other employees of the federal government and the U.S. Postal Service, provide support for medical research to find treatments and cures for diseases. This is done through the Combined Federal Campaign, an annual workplace giving campaign that allows eligible individuals to support charities, such as those that conduct medical research, through a payroll deduction. Money donated this way to the medical research charities and its member organizations helps fund research to fight diseases from Alzheimer's to cancer, multiple sclerosis, blindness, breathing disorders, and much more. The diseases included afflict people of all ages, from the very young to the very old. You don't need to be a member of the military or a federal government employee to support research to help you or those you love that are suffering from an illness or disease. Donations to our not-for-profit tax-exempt organizations are tax-deductible and provide a vital source of funding in the fight to defeat some of life's most dreaded diseases. Please visit the website of the Medical Research Charities, which can be found at medicalresearchcharities.org. That's all one word, medicalresearchcharities.org. On that website, you can learn more about our member charities and make a donation in support of the research they're conducting for a specific disease or family of diseases. You can make a donation to Medical Research Charities itself and support the work of all our member charities. Please visit our website today, medicalresearchcharities.org. Become a part of Joining Forces to Find a Cure. Are you a family caregiver? Are you taking care of a spouse or loved one who can no longer take care of himself or herself? Are you dealing with Alzheimer's disease and don't know what to do? Do you feel burned out, frustrated, and just don't know where to turn? You've tried doctors, lawyers, and mental health professionals and have come to realize that they don't have practical answers to these questions. What you need are experts, non-clinical family caregivers with 25 years of active experience helping thousands of family caregivers like yourself. People who can help you provide a better quality of life for yourself and your loved one. Who you need are David Levy or Paul Vadiato. Reach David at david@caregiverreality.com or reach Paul at caregiverreality.com and let them help you pick the right path towards improving the quality of life for you, the caregiver, and your loved one.
This is Paul Vadiato, co-host of Caregiver Reality Hour. As a spousal caregiver, I know that sometimes things get rough and sometimes we lose perspective. David Levy and I have over 50 years' experience and expertise on advising caregivers. If you find that you need help, you're a little confused, reach out to us at Paul or David at caregiverreality.com. We're there to help.
This is Caregiver Reality with gerontologist David Levy and caregiver expert Paul Vadiato, who ask you to call in and speak with him on the air toll-free at 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470 to share a story or important information. Now, back to today's Caregiver Reality Show.
And we're back. It's the Drive Time Kids, David and Paul. And I just want to remind you that Medical Research Charities is out there doing exactly what we were just talking about. Their member organizations, all 29 of them, are looking to find cures for just about every disease imaginable. And they have two organizations that are involved with Alzheimer's, one of which is Scripps out in La Jolla. Although our Scripps Institute here in Jupiter, Florida, is doing a lot of brain issues and dealing with a lot of the same kinds of things. And right now they're in the middle of their federal employee charitable donation period where they solicit federal employees. They're one of the few organizations that can. And for the most part, the federal employees have been very, very supportive, but everybody's going through their thing financially, et cetera. And as I said last week, we can't expect everything to happen on the backs of the federal employee. So go to medicalresearchcharities.org, make a donation. You can specify which one you want or just make it and it'll be spread over everybody. But this is the time, and believe me, just as we just said, if we want to find a cure for these diseases, we got to stand up, we got to push our legislators, we have to push the Congress, we have to allocate these dollars, we have to do everything we can to raise awareness, or we're going to be living with the same things 30, 40, 50 years from now, and that would be unconscionable.
And that's a good way, really, to remember someone, a loved one who might have had Alzheimer's, for example.
Is to make a donation in their name, and every dollar helps. And believe me, we've got to find a way to delay this disease on the way to finding a cure. Anyway, tonight, our special guest, I've known her for like forever, even though she's so young. It's Marcia Teal. She is the marketing director for Arden Court, the one on Jog Road in Delray Beach. It's the #1 Arden Court in the country, and the only reason it is because Marcia knows exactly what she's doing when it comes to marketing. She's out in the community. She raises awareness. She's a tremendous, tremendous asset to not only Arden Court, but to the community. Welcome.
Thank you, David. I'm so glad to be here with you all tonight because, as you know, educating caregivers and helping them is very important to me, and it's actually a passion of mine.
I know it is. Paul?
Well, Marcia, we're thrilled to have you today. Such a knowledge of resources. Anyway, just to jump into things real quick, you were talking earlier that you bought finally a new sports car for yourself, and I think a lot of us know how to buy a car. But when it really comes into looking in facilities, assisted living facilities, and you may hear the abbreviation ALF, assisted living facility, it's just not so easy because they come in all different kinds of flavors. Can you give our listeners an understanding of some of the different types of assisted living facilities that are out there?
Well, basically, it's what I call your regular assisted living, and then there's a specialized assisted living. And when I say specialized, that is an assisted living that is totally dedicated to a specific type of individual. And in my case, it would be Alzheimer's. It would be residents that have some form of dementia, that have memory loss, and they need a higher level of care than what they could ever get in a regular assisted living. Now, there are people that live in a regular assisted living that, yes, they do have dementia. It's usually a mild cognitive impairment, maybe in very early, and they haven't gotten to the point yet where they possibly need a dedicated type of assisted living because when they do, they're not going to have the resources where they're currently at to help them move along as the disease progresses.
Marcia, something called, we hear a lot about board and care. That's a type of assisted living facility also. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, an assisted living facility, a regular one, is a place to live that they do help you with things such as assisting with cooking. You don't have to cook your meals. You can maybe fix your own breakfast if you want to in your own little apartment, and then maybe have 2 meals down in the dining room. So it's assisting with your certain daily activities. They will take you to the store. They have transportation. If you pay extra, some assisted living facilities will help you be safe in the shower, for instance, and do what I call like a standby to make sure you're not falling and slipping. And others will help with your medication administration if you're not sure about taking your medications properly. That's about as far as it goes. Of course, there's a social aspect to that too. And so a lot of people who don't want to be home anymore to take care of the house, or they live by themselves and they'd rather expand their social experience, they would go to a regular assisted living. But when dementia kicks in and a person that has dementia is home and they're no longer getting enough stimulation, they're not getting the proper stimulation or socialization, or maybe their caregiver is either non-existent because they passed away, maybe from the stresses of caregiving, or maybe the caregiver is so overwhelmed they're tearing their hair out and they don't know what to do, then that's going to be much more helpful to go into a specific facility that knows how to deal with those problems.
So what then are some of the criteria that constitutes a good assisted living facility, and what are some of the red flags that some of our listeners should really look out for when they go to visit or they receive marketing material?
Okay. Are we going to talk in general, or you want to talk specifically
Talk
dementia?
general,
Generally. Yeah.
Okay. In general, when you're going to search, and you should always do your homework, but in general, there are certain things that everybody needs to look at. You obviously have to visit the actual facility. You can't pick it out of a catalog. And you walk in and you want to look at the place and you want to experience it. How does it feel? How does it smell? What does it actually look like? Is it clean? So you're looking at the actual place. You might want to consider where it's located so that if you have family around, it would be convenient for them to visit you. And that's about as far as it goes as far as the place. But what you can investigate a little bit further is that you want to look at their actual ratings, because assisted livings are, at least in Florida, they are controlled under the Agency for Healthcare Administration, which actually surveys them every 2 years. And that actual survey result should be in the lobby of the assisted living, where you can read it, open it up, see what kind of deficiencies they've had, see what kind of problems they've had, and see if they fixed those problems. So that's just one step in the process. I like to educate the caregivers on the 4 P's of placement, one of them not being price, and the first P would be the place.
Okay. And what are some of the red flags? So when you go in right away, you know something's not right here.
I would say that if you walk in and you're being ignored, first of all, that happens to people. They don't have the professionalism. You want to be in a place where people know what they're doing. They act professional. You're going to be welcomed. And believe it or not, when you walk into some of these places, they have a bad attitude. So, attitude is everything, because a lot of times it stems from the top down. And so if you walk in and you're not experiencing a warm and fuzzy, watch out, because it's not going to get much better down the road or within other departments, because that's the personality, so to speak, of that particular facility. So that might be a red flag.
You want to try the food.
Yeah, you could try the food. One of the things you want to do is try to go when you're announced and pop in, so they don't put on the dog and pony show for you. And you just want to pop in and see if they'll accommodate you. They should be able to accommodate you on a moment's notice. And within reason, don't go at 11 o'clock at night and expect to be accommodated. But, within reason, pop in. They're not expecting you. You can see what really happens. I always tell families to talk to people in the parking lot before and after that you go in
Great
to visit.
idea.
Because you're not in the facility. And if someone has something to say, you're in the privacy of outside the building, and they'll usually be very honest with you with what they think, and they'll tell you.
Great nugget of gold.
That's a goodie.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I remember, Marsha, when my dad was in assisted living, wasn't in dementia. Towards the end, when he got sick, they started having difficulties because of licensure issues, of what they could and cannot do. And I know every facility is different in every state, but can you talk a little bit about that? Restrictions?
Well, it's being a little bit less restrictive now. There was the ECC license, there's a limited nursing license. I guess what's important is you want to find out what your needs are and meet your needs to that specific facility. One of the things that's very important is having nurses in the facility, and you want to find out how many hours the nurses are there, because you never know when you're going to be sick, and you never know when something's going to happen, and you want a professional there so they can triage for you and be your advocate, whether it be calling the family, calling the doctor, calling 911 for you. So there are certain things that you want to check out. So before you even start looking at a place, you want to make yourself a wish list. This is what I would like. I would like this, 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 and this. And then when you go in, you can ask if they have those types of things. It's important to just think about that for a long time, because a lot of people don't even know what to ask before they even get started. And so if you kind of make a wish list, you might be surprised.
Right. Marsha, one question. The wish list is nice, but I think we also have to be realistic about managing expectations. It's not the Taj Mahal, and you're not going to a hotel, even though they may want to extend that level of ambience to you. So I think you have to make sure that when you're looking, you're realistic about what's being offered.
For the dollars, too.
For the dollars, too, absolutely.
Right. Now, there are some regular assisted livings that, are very fancy. And that's okay, because they're like a hotel. If that's what you're used to, that's the kind of environment you want to live in, where they have chandeliers and marble floors. That's fine. If you're a person who can appreciate the beauty and like that and like that lifestyle and have the money. But when it comes to a dementia assisted living, everything changes. Everything changes.
So now we're going to make the segue, as Paul would say, and get a much better understanding about, it's one thing when we go to assisted living and we're getting a little bit of assistance with what you said, activities of daily living. How well can I move around? Do I need a little help getting in and out of the bed, the chair, etc.? But when I'm looking for a dementia facility, and certainly nobody has more experience in both understanding the caregiver as well as understanding the client. So now this is your opportunity to really explain to the American public, not so much in terms of Arden Court, because I consider it to be the gold standard, and I've known you folks for as long as you've been open, but in taking generically a assisted living dementia facility, what are the differences and what should we be looking for?
Wow, that is a big question.
Well, you can come back next week.
I might have to.
Well, you break it down any way you'd like.
All right.
All right. First of all, I come through the door.
Well, you're coming through the door, and again, the same thing applies.
And the door's locked.
And the door is going to, hopefully the door is locked. And when you are specifically looking for dementia care, you want to be in a secure environment. A lot of people say, is that a lockdown? I don't like the word lockdown. It sounds like, people are shoved in and the key is thrown away.
Prison.
It's not prison. It
Right.
shouldn't be like prison. Now, all dementia-assisted livings are not alike, all right?
No kidding.
And they are so many differences. So that's why it's so important for caregivers to really do their homework. But when you're looking, again, same kind of things. You want to come in unannounced, you want to smell, you want to look, but it goes beyond that. You want to go through all the P's, and you not only want to look at the place and look at their ratings and look at their survey and meet the people that are there, but you want to find out, who are the people that work here? Who are the people that are going to take care of my loved one? Because you're the one, as maybe an adult child, you're the one choosing a place for your mom or dad or your grandparent, or you're the spouse, and you have to make the decision because they're not capable of doing that. So it's a big job because you're making that decision for them, and you want the best for them. I'm sure you want the best. And so it's position where you want to see, who are these people taking care of my loved one? What are their credentials? How long have they worked here? Is it a place that has a lot of turnover? Because if there is, your loved one is not going to be consistently cared for by the same people. And when it's talking about dementia care, that is very disconcerting to someone with dementia, always having a new person coming in. Oh, now you're going to get me undressed and you're going to put me in the shower, and I don't know you and I've never seen you before. When you have non-consistent caregiving, it causes a lot of behavioral problems in people with dementia. Mm-hmm. They don't trust you, they don't know you, they're scared, and when that happens, they can act out, and you're going to have a lot more behavioral problems. So you want to find out the longevity of not only the people that work there as far as direct caregivers, but also of the management, because it's important to know who you're going to talk to and who you're going to go to when you do have a problem. And you're going to have a problem everywhere. I'm not saying you're never going to have a problem. I mean, as good as my company is, we're not perfect. And there is no such thing as a perfect dementia assisted living. However, there are huge differences in the quality of care, and that's why Arden Courts is celebrating 20 years of experience, because we have that quality of care. But that being said, there aren't Arden Courts everywhere in the country. We have them scattered around, but for people that are in places where they don't have a good recommendation, and they don't have an Arden Courts or a good recommendation, they have to do the best they can with what they have where they are. So you're looking at the people, but then it goes beyond that. Look at the people that live there. How do they look? How do they act? Do they smile? Do they seem content? Are they well groomed? Are they disheveled? So you want to look at the people that are there. The next thing you want to look at are the programs that are available. Programs for the residents. So one of the worst things you can do is have someone go into an assisted living because you think, okay, they're going to be better off there than at home because there's not a lot going on at home. And sometimes they just sit at home and they, what I call, melt away because there's nothing to engage them. But believe it or not, that can happen in an assisted living too if it does not have a properly supervised, guided activities where the residents are engaged, where they're prompted, where they're encouraged, where they are giving opportunities for things that they can do, where it's focused on what someone can do, not what they can't do, where there's a lot of positive feedback. You want to be able to elevate their self-esteem. You want to increase their quality of life. That's what it's supposed to be. If you're coming from home and home is not the best place, it's good sometimes as a Band-Aid with home health, but sometimes you just need more. And assisted living is supposed to give you more. So if you're not getting more, then it's not good. And so you want to make sure those activities are there. They are going to help alleviate also some negative behaviors. When people have dementia, they can act out, they can sundown.
What does that mean?
Sundown is typically described as the sun goes down in the afternoon, usually late afternoon, early evening. It creates a psychological effect on someone with dementia where if now not everybody will sundown, but people that have the tendency to, if they're going to have a personality change, if they're going to have changes in their behavior that are negative, it'll usually happen late afternoon, early evening. And so we call it that they have the sundown syndrome. But you need to have people in that building that are taking care of them that understand that. And not everybody is trained adequately on dementia care. So not only are you looking how long they've been there, but what are their training? What have they been through to help your loved one? Not just, I read a book about Alzheimer's, all right? What's their experience? How much training do they get? Experience makes all the difference, all right? So you're looking into the people, you're looking into the programs. You also want to look into programs for the families because without family support, families need to be a part of the solution to help. And the family should be engaged in that loved one's care with the facility. They should be joining forces together. There should be good communication between the facility and the family. They should be able to be honest and open and upfront without fear of retaliation. And you want to find out what kind of programs families can go to either learn as an educational process or go to a support group. Very important there to have that for families. So it's not just for your loved one, it's a family disease. They call Alzheimer's a family disease because it does affect the whole family in one way or another. And then after you go through all of that, the last P would be making a plan. And that's where a lot of caregivers stop short. They'll go through and they might go through the 3 Ps, but when they get to the last P of planning, sometimes they stop short because they think, I'll never need that. I can do it. They're going to be a martyr doing it, and they might die doing it, but they need to have a plan. Even if they do not exercise that plan, they have one just in case. And you never know with Alzheimer's disease what's going to happen. Things can change on a dime. And what you said yesterday is not the same thing as today or tomorrow. So when you have your plan in place, there are a lot of P's out there, right? When you have your plan in place, and it can be a tongue twister sometimes.
Well, add Paul into the mix.
Yeah, there you go. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel a little bit more ready. You're going to have more peace of mind knowing that if I need something, now I know where to go, I know who to go to, and I am going to be more prepared. Or, God forbid, if something happened to me as a caregiver, as a spouse caregiver, if I die tomorrow from a heart attack, who's going to take care of my husband? I better have a plan in place. Tell my children, if something happens to me, this is who you call, this is where you go, because you've already checked it out. You've put your seal of approval on it, and now you've left your family instructions what to do.
Marsha, we have a lot of people driving home in their cars listening to us right now, and they're probably thinking to themselves, well, I've noticed changes in mom and dad. It's so hard to have that discussion with them, and I know from my years of experience that people tend to wait too long before they do something. Can you please speak to those people in the car who are really struggling with how do I have that conversation? What needs to be done?
Well, one of the things that adult children sometimes don't even realize is that there is a problem, especially if the adult child does not live in the same city or state
Sure.
as their parent. And that's where a lot of them can get into trouble and get surprised, because they'll call mom or dad every day. Hi, Mom, how are you? Oh, fine, dear.
So we talk to your father.
What did you do today? Oh, the usual. Did you have dinner yet? Yes, I did. Well, what did you have? Oh, I had some spaghetti. Was it good? Oh, yes, it was very good. Your father cooks great spaghetti. Okay, well, I'm glad that you're fine. Let me know, if you need anything, and I'll talk to you tomorrow or next week. Okay. Now, that sounds like a normal conversation between
I call that one the cliche conversation. Hi, how are you? Fine.
Kids and grandchildren are fine.
Right, exactly. How are you? Okay. Like you said, did you eat dinner? Yeah. Is it snowing? No. And you literally find that they feed them the question, and it's a cliche answer, and they could be very advanced in their dementia.
Yes.
If you don't turn around and say, so, what'd you think of the election today? And it's not that you're going to get the full report, but if you go, oh, it's fine. Well, then you kind of begin to know. But a lot of people, just like spouses and others, are in denial.
Right.
They just don't know. And sometimes it's not willful denial.
Right.
It's a lack of knowing what it is that you're supposed to respond to and how things should happen.
Exactly. And so this adult child, they're going to call their siblings. Oh, I talked to Mom today. She's fine. There is nothing wrong with her. And in reality, that mom probably didn't have dinner. Why did she say she had spaghetti? Because they're Italian. They always have spaghetti. Okay? So that's normal.
Can you comment on that, Vadiato?
Only if it's Thursday and Sunday.
Right.
And,
in Boston.
And it's the social chit-chat that we all grew up doing. How are you? Fine.
It's the cliches.
And so you can't tell by that if mom is really okay or not. You don't know if she's taking her medicine. If she said she did, how do you really know? There's no way to tell. So when adult children show up for the holidays, oh my goodness, look, mom's got spoiled food in the refrigerator. Look at the stack of bills on the counter that she hasn't even opened or paid.
The laundry hasn't been done.
Yeah, and they have no clue. So I think one of the things, first of all, since we're talking about this, is that you need to find out from someone who has firsthand knowledge of how your parents are doing, not just calling them up and getting that from them.
So maybe a neighbor?
A neighbor to check in, someone who can report back to the family how things are going.
Maybe even employ somebody like a case manager or somebody like that to stick their head in the door every couple weeks and just make sure that what you're hearing is really going on.
That's true. I recommend a lot of geriatric care managers to people for that exact reason, because a care manager can be this eyes and ears. They can be your eyes and ears when you can't be there, and they'll check in and they'll report back to you. They work for you. So
Marcia, accepting that, and I've been down this road, when my father was alive. How does that adult child begin this conversation where they know that mom and dad needs help, and they don't know what to say? They don't know what to say to their siblings. Can you help with the words?
Mm-hmm. You want to get
Paul.
You want to get to the heart of the matter.
Please.
All right? No, that's what they want to do too. They need as an adult child to get to the heart of the matter and talk about the feelings. Because if you come in, Mom, I'm taking over this because you're not paying the bills and I can see that you don't know what you're doing. You're going to put them on the defensive. And Nobody wants to be told what to do, especially from your child.
The greatest generation.
Exactly. And there is a point in someone's journey of dementia where they actually know they're losing their abilities, all right? And that's when they're the most vulnerable. They know they're losing it. They know something's not right. They know they're forgetting, but they're never going to admit it. So now they're going to be in denial. But that's when they're the most vulnerable. And they are going to do things to prove to themselves and others that they're okay. And that's why you hear about people getting in the car and driving to the store and they end up, in Key West, because they just lost their way and they didn't know. But they're going to show that I can still drive and I know where I'm going. So they're very vulnerable. So you have to come in from a different angle, and you want to get to the heart of the matter with more of the feeling, more of the touchy-feely. Mom, I'm really worried about you. It makes me uncomfortable when I'm not, knowing what's going on with you. So, maybe we could talk about what we could do so that I would feel better. Right? So because a parent is always going to want for their child to be happy. Mom, it'd make me really happy if, Esther next door could come over and, spend a little time and help you with this. It just make me, I know you don't need it. I know you can do it yourself, but it would make me really happy.
Marsha, I hear the music coming on. Can you give us a way that people can contact you? How they can reach you at Arden Courts if they want to take a tour?
Yes, please. I am available at 561-498-5552. That is my office.
Repeat it.
561-498-5552. And I am in Delray, but I get calls from all over the country with people wanting to know, what can I do about my situation? It's free to ask.
And the website?
The website is www.arden, which is spelled ARDEN -courts, plural, COURTS.com.
All right. And so if they call you, that you can also help to steer them to what might be an Arden Court near them or near where their loved one lives, even if they're not coming to Delray.
Exactly, and I could be a good resource. So it doesn't have to be their option is only an assisted living. Their options might be other things like home health or something like that.
Conversation worth having.
Exactly.
Right. Marcia, thank you so much. Our time has run out, and I want to thank you. You are a font of knowledge, and we're going to have you back soon because I know our listening audience has learned a lot. So, South Florida, America, and the world, have a great evening. This has been the Caregiver Reality Hour. I'm Paul.
Thank you again for listening. Join us next Tuesday evening, and caregivers, take care of yourselves. Have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Reality Show. Each week, David Levy, a gerontologist, and Paul Vadiato, a caregiver expert with a combined over 25 years of experience, providing practical and realistic help to caregivers struggling to keep up with the needs of a loved one who are unable to care for himself or herself. To reach David Levy, email him at david@caregiverreality.com. Or to reach Paul Vadiato, email paul@caregiverreality.com. And find out more online. Just go to caregiverreality.com. See you next week for another exciting show of Caregiver Reality.